Okay, the time has come to do everything that everyone has long since forgotten, especially the first 6 questions on the review sheet. Nobody remembered how to do any of them, and that's fine. I mean, this is stuff that we did way back in the beginning. So a lot of it's pretty simple. You know, there are some tough questions, but most of it's not. Like this first one here. This is just simple multiplication, right? You do your FOIL. So again, be careful. You can put little 1 here if you felt it was necessary. Remember how you multiply the radicals, you multiply the numbers on the outside, you multiply the numbers on the inside. So you do 1 times 2, which is 2, right? You're doing the first. Radical 6 and radical 6 is radical 36. If you want to just put 6 there, that's fine. So then that was the first. Now we're going to do the outer. 1 times 3, positive 3. Radical 6 and radical 2 make radical 12. So now we're done, right? First outer. So now we do inner. Negative 2 times 2 is negative 4. Radical 2 and radical 6 is radical 12. Again, take your time with it. Do it nice and slow. Outside, inside. And then the last. Negative 2 times positive 3 is negative 6. Radical 2 and radical 2, right? Numbers outside, numbers inside. Radical 4. As long as you do this question and take your time with it, it's pretty simple. Now I'm going to take people out of jail. 36 comes out, right? Square root of 36 is 6 because 6 times 6 is 36. Here you can combine them, and I want you to. 3 radical 12s take away 4 radical 12s is negative 1 radical 12s. Negative 6 stays. Radical 4 is a perfect square, comes out of jail. So you get 2. What's cool here is you get a 12 there, and you get a negative 12 there. So they cross out. These numbers are going to be gone, and all you get is this. Now, unfortunately, if you stop there, you get it wrong. Well, you lose like a point or 2. You have to break the radical down completely. 12 breaks down with 4 and 3. Why? Because 4 is a perfect square. Take it out of the jail. You get negative 2, radical 3. That's it. It's that simple, right? Multiply, careful, combine like terms, break the radical down at the end. No big deal. Now the vertex, which everybody forgot, is just a simple formula. But if you don't remember that simple formula, then you can't do it. So it's negative b over 2a. Now remember, that only gives you the x coordinate of the point. So remember, this is a, this is b, this is c. We don't need c because we're not using the quadratic formula. This the only one that uses that is the quadratic formula. So I have that a is negative 3. Just be very careful with the signs. And I have that b is negative 12. So now when you plug in, I want to see it done very precisely. B is negative 12. So you're doing minus 12. And on the bottom, you have a is negative 3. The negative and the negative make a positive. So you have positive 12 on the top. I'm aware my 2's are different. 2 times negative 3 is negative 6 on the bottom. That tells me that the x coordinate 12 divided by 6 is 2, and then the negative makes it negative. So you get x is negative 2. This is only half the answer because, you know, the vertex is a point. So you have to take negative 2 and plug it back to the original function and figure out what the y value is. So everywhere you see x, oh crap, I wrote it wrong. And no one's here to correct me except me. Well, at least I caught it. So there's supposed to be an x there, and I didn't put it. It's a good thing I see it now. All right. So, right, I mean, every polynomial has x squared, x, and a number. So, and I forgot to write the x. So when you plug in, all the x's that I put there have to get replaced with a negative 2. So remember, this one is squared. This one is not. Now remember, you cannot hop the fence with the power on. You got to shut the power off first. So you do negative 2 times negative 2, which is positive 4. Here you have negative 12 times negative 2, which is positive 24, and then minus 7. So here you get negative 12 plus 24 minus 7. Let's see, that's 12. Take away 7, I believe it's 5. So the y is 5. So that makes your vertex, the x coordinate is negative 2. The y coordinate is 5. I do prefer that you write it as a point, but you know, if you have your x and y correct, I wouldn't even think about deducting for that. Okay, question 2. The problems start to get a little bit more complex here. So the first one, again, most people completely forgot how to do this, but this is the one where you have to put the LCD on the top and cross all the bottoms out. You know, this is the technique. You know, you have a complex fraction. fraction on top and a fraction on the bottom, and you don't combine now. This is a mistake, and this is not the way, this is not the technique. So you put x squared, how do you know? Because you have x to the first, x to the 2, and over here is 1, right? You have to pick the highest power of x that you see. Well, that's x2. So now these cross out completely, which is great, right? It gives you a 1. Here, if you had x2 over x1, right? x2 is that. So when you cross them out, you just get a single x left. So those cross out and just leave you with an x. So on the top, you have x times 3, right? That's 3x on the top, plus 2 times 1, which is 2. So that's the top. Here, there's nothing to cross out. There is a 1 there. You don't cross this out. You have to multiply by it. So you have 9x squared there. Minus, now here again, x squared and x squared, boom, they wipe out and make a 1. Negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. Now, if you stop there, it's not simplified completely. And the thing is, don't do nothing crazy here. You might be tempted, oh, I'm going to put the 2 into the 4 and the 3 into the 9. And this is retardedness, right? This doesn't work. We can't do that. You have to factor the bottom. The bottom is a difference of perfect squares. 9 is a perfect square, 4 is a perfect square. So you put your 2 parentheses, something times itself to make 9x squared, and then something times itself to make 4. We did this way back in the day. Right, so the bottom is 3x plus 2, 3x minus 2, and not by coincidence, you have a 3x plus 2 on top to cross out with it. So be very careful here. People will cross these out, and then they'll just go, oh, I got it. It's 3x minus 2. The problem is when you cross these out, you made a 1. You know, if you had 2 over 6, that's 2 over 3 times 2. When you cross out these 2's, 2 divided by 2 is 1. This fraction is a third. You don't cross this out and say, oh, it's 3. 2 divided by 6 is not 3. So you have to be very careful. I want to put it underneath over here because I have that there. So you get a 1 on the top, 3x minus 2 on the bottom. So don't fall for that crap on the final. It's easy to make that mistake, but don't do it. So this one, everyone really did forget how to do this one. In order to get rid of the radical on the bottom when there's 2 terms, you have to multiply what's called the conjugate. So you basically just keep the damn thing exactly the same, and you just switch the sign in the middle, only the middle, right? You don't switch him and him. You only switch the middle sign. So I'm going to multiply by 3 plus radical 3. And you're going to see why it works. So I am going to multiply the top, right? One at a time. This does not have a radical part, but this one does. So you multiply the numbers on the outside, which is 6, and the radical 6 has to just go along for the right. You cannot, said this a million times, that 3 is not in jail, and it is not going in there to hit that 6. It's not going to, you're not going to get radical 18 there. No matter what, no matter how nicely you ask this 3 to go into jail, it won't. Now, this one's already in the jail, right? There's an invisible 1 there. So you do 1 times 2 on the outside. Radical 6 and radical 3, they are both in jail already. So you can multiply them only because they're both inside, right? That's the way it works. So now you got to FOIL the bottom. You get 3 times 3, which is 9. On the outside, you have a positive 3 times a positive radical 3. So that's 3 radical 3. Now in the inner, right, the middle, you get negative radical 3 times 3. That's minus 3 radical 3. This is the reason the radical on the bottom goes away. And over here, you have a positive times a negative. Radical 3 times radical 3 is radical 9, which is just 3. Right, we're going to cut to the chase here. Right, radical 3 times radical 3 is radical 9, which is 3. These cross out. That's the whole point of the conjugate, is to kill the radical. If you don't multiply by this thing, you will end up with a radical on the bottom. And the goal of the question, for whatever stupid ass reason, is to get rid of the radical on the bottom. We don't know why. No one knows why. It's just something you do. So on the bottom, you have 9 minus 3, which is 6. Now, I didn't make that big enough. There we go. This you can't do anything with. However, this you can. So I do expect, at least on the side, to see you take the 18, break it down with 9 and 2, take the 9 out of jail as 3, right? If you want to do this on the side, just to save yourself space, because, you know, on the final exam, space is going to be at a premium. I mean, there's 10 questions. I've put 2 per page for 5 pages. It's very long. So even with me trying to space out and give you as much room as possible, you're not going to have as much space as you normally would have. So 18, radical 9, radical 2. 9 comes out of jail. You hook them up. Remember, this is a positive. So you're going to get 6 radical 2 over there. Now, you might want to just cross those out, but it doesn't work that way. As long as everybody on the top is divisible by 6, you can cross them all out at the same time and just put all ones there, right? So you get radical 6 plus radical 2. All done. All right, number 3. I actually consider this the hardest question on the final. It's worth 10 points by itself, and there's so many ways you can screw it up. You have to be extremely careful when you do it, but you know, again, the more you write, the more points you get, just as long as you're trying it. You have a choice. You can solve for X or you can solve for Y, but it's kind of clear that if you were to subtract Y, then you have to divide by -1. It's just easier to solve for Y. So I'm going to do that. Let me write it again. I'll put it over here, just so it's not in the way. So you're going to add X to both sides, right? So you get Y equals 3 plus X, but you know, we are used to seeing it like this, right? We're used to seeing the X first. So just put the damn letter first. You can write 3 plus X, but then it looks backwards to me. So I don't do that. So once you've done that step, right? Elimination doesn't work here, right? You have X2, X1, Y2, Y1. So you can't eliminate, you must do substitution. So you're going to keep the X squared thing the same, but where you see the letter Y, you're going to put X plus 3 because that's what Y is equal to. So don't forget the 2. This is really important. You have to make sure that's there. Now, from this point, there's a dozen ways you can fuck this up royally. First thing is to just write X squared plus 9. And the whole problem is dead. You have to be very careful here. All right. You have a minus sign here. You have this to do. So when you do X plus 3 squared, you're doing this. If you want to do it on the side, that's awesome. I'm not going to waste time doing this whole nonsense. Right, you get X squared, you get positive 3x, which is positive 6x, and then you get 3 times 3, which is 9, right? You're just foiling it out, equals 7. So I don't need that anymore. You know, you want to do it on the side, that's fine. Hell, you want to do it in your head? I'm okay with you going from here to here. This is fine. As a lot of you can do this in your mind. You write X squared plus 9, the whole problem is done. So now you are subtracting this, this, and this. You are not just doing 2x squared minus x squared. You are subtracting all 3 of these. That's why I have parentheses there. So you must take that minus and hit everybody in there. It has to hop the fence and distribute to all of them. So everybody's sign will switch. Switch, switch, switch. Boom, they all switched. Now, these I can subtract. You had 2x squared, you lost 1. That's x squared. Thank God, it's going to be easy to factor now. You have negative 6x. Now, when you factor, you know you want it equal to 0. So you may as well take this to that side and put equal 0. Negative 9 and negative 7 make negative 16. Equals 0 now, right? 7 minus 7 is 0. That's the goal, right? Set equal to 0, factor it. So you're looking for numbers whose product is 16 and the sum is 6. 1 and 16, they make a 17 or a 15. 4 and 4, they either make 8 or 0. So it ain't 4 and 4. Right. So the only pair that's going to work here is 8 and 2. So you put 8, you put 2. The larger number gets the negative. The smaller number gets the positive. Why? Because you need a negative 6. Minus 8 plus 2 is negative 6. Negative 8 times positive 2 is negative 16. Now, I think I've said this before. If the product of 2 things is 0, one of them must be 0. You know, I would like to see this step. I'm not going to have a heart attack if you skip this step. You get x equal 8, and you get x equal negative 2. And then you get all excited, and you're like, I got that shit all day. The problem's over. But the problem isn't over. You're looking at 2 graphs. Now, the bottom graph is a line. The top graph, you have no idea what the hell it is. Some weird-ass hyperbola. These graphs are going to hit twice. They hit at these 2 points. The problem is you don't know the points yet because you don't know the other coordinate. So you got to take the x's that you got. That's why I did this. X equal 8. I mean, this is the easy part. All this shit's the hard part. Once you get here, the problem is done. Just don't do anything stupid. I'm going to replace x with 8 and figure out what y is. The big duh. So y is 11 here. So the first point where those graphs meet is 8, 11. Now you're going to put -2 for x. So 3 take away 2. Just be careful with your signs, even though it's a negative first. It's the larger positive here, right? So it's 1. So you get x is -2, y is 1. Those are the 2 points where those weird ass graphs, whatever they are, meet. So that's all you have to do. But this is a very long question. I would strongly recommend you do this question dead last. Wherever it happens to be on your final, ignore it. You finish that whole test, you come back to this because nothing else will take you as long as that question. And if you screw it up and you start looking for a mistake, then you're going to cost yourself precious time that you don't have. Okay, question 4, circle. I'm going to do this quick, and I'm going to not graph it because, I already graphed it in great detail. I don't see people do that wrong. So I want to do the parts that I see people do wrong. Most people, when they get the center and the radius, they graph this just fine, right? You go up, down, left, right, make your 4 points, get the coordinates. It's easy. All right, and I did it in that circle video, and I'm not going to do it again because it is a pain in the ass for me to draw it, and it takes time. So you will have a nice grid to draw the circle on the final. I'll have a XY plane grid there for you to graph. So remember, the first step is always to start rearranging terms. It's always going to be put in this form. So remember, you want to leave a gap here, plus, right, y squared. I keep making straight marks with my marker. Plus 6y. Again, you want to leave yourself a gap. You want the number on the other side. So you have to subtract it over, right? Do the opposite of whatever you see. If you see a plus here, you subtract it and they cross out. So here's the form you want to put it in. So now remember what I always said, and you forgot because it was forever ago. Take the number in front of x and cut it in half. Put a circle around it. Take the number in front of y, cut it in half, put a circle around it. Notice, half of -8 is -4. Half of +6 is +3. It matters. Make sure you have the sign when you cut it in half. All right, now, the goal, because this is called completing the square. So you're going to square these numbers. -4 squared is +16. Whatever you add to the left, you better add to the right, or you've disrupted your balance. +3 squared is +9. You're going to add that to both sides. Now, you just built something here that factors. So I'm going to write that. You put this big ass plus. This thing, you just built yourself a perfect square. It factors. Now there you get 25 minus 21, which is 4. So over here, you're going to have an x. You're going to have a y. Whatever number you circled goes here. Whatever number you circled goes here. If you were to multiply x minus 4 by x minus 4, you get this. If you do y plus 3, you get this. That's the whole point of this question. Now it's done. That's standard form. This is what you have to do. You complete the square twice. It has to look like this. I see people forget the plus sign. They do it right. They write all sorts of weird crap. They put a plus here. You cannot afford to screw this step up, because if you do, then you're going to get your center wrong. Once your center is wrong, you lose half the points because you ain't going to draw in the right place. You must get the center correct. This is critical. This problem is worth 10. 10 is a lot. So, and this is only half of it, right? I mean, you have to get the center radius, but then you have to draw it. So if you do this wrong, right, remember, switch, switch. And then the radius is easy, right? It's just a square root. You better hope you get a perfect square there. The radius is the square root of 4, which is 2. So again, you would plot this point. You'd go 4 to the right and 3 down. And then from your center, you'd go up 2, down 2, left 2, right 2, and then connect the dots all the way around, right? But again, this is critical. You get the center incorrect or the radius wrong. Like, I see a lot of people just forget to do this step. How the hell is that going to work? The radius is -21. What the fuck does that mean? You're gonna go up -21, down. I mean, you can't. There's no such thing. You can't take the square root of that, right? It's the square root. So, you have to be very careful when you do this question. So this is the key to the whole problem. And then you make the picture, which I'm not doing it now, but you guys have seen me do it before, and you guys have done it before. So you don't need the graph is the easy part. This is the important part before the graph, right? And we have one more for this half. All right, this is gonna be the last one in the first half because I'm splitting the videos into two so they don't become obnoxiously long. So this was 3 by 3. So appreciate that. I could have left the question there, and it would have been fun. It's a long question, and it's another one of those where if you make the tiniest mistake, little minus sign, the whole thing is shot, and then you spend yourself 20 minutes trying to find that mistake. Even if you come up to me and I find it for you, it's just too long. These are much easier, much quicker, and these are really important topics. Solving equations with x squared in them are critical. So, and we spent a lot of time on this. I mean, we did a lot of techniques. If you remember, we did the factoring, we did the square root property, we did complete the square, we did the quadratic formula. It's an important idea. So I think this was a good replacement to make. So remember, set it equal to 0. I mean, we just did this in another problem, right? When we were doing the nonlinear system, we had to set it equal to 0 in factor. So this is important because if you don't bring this over, if you try to factor this now like it's one thing and it's not, you're gonna get your signs wrong because you have a positive here. So you subtract it over. You want to write it at the end. Now, I could list all the pairs of 24, but I don't need to, right? If you try to make it 12 and 2, right? Because certainly 12 take away 2 is 10. So you might think, 12 and 2, or you might think 6 and 4, because 6 and 4 make 10, right? 6 plus 4 is 10. So you're looking at these two pairs only, right? It can't be 8 and 3. They make an 11 and a 5, right? It can't be 1 and 24. So the key is the signs. The signs have to be different. If you didn't switch this sign, right, and you had a minus and a minus, you'd end up picking this pair, which is no good, right? This pair isn't going to work. If you try 6 and 4, with the signs different, you don't get 10, right? -6 plus 4 is -2. So this pair is out. So it has to be 12 and 2 to make the 10. So hopefully your first instinct was to pick those like mine. And then again, if the product of two things is 0, blah, 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 let's cut to the chase, right? Set them equal to 0. I am perfectly okay with you doing this at this point. Set this one equal to 0, you get that. Set this one equal to 0, you get that. This is the one that nobody remembered how to do this. People were multiplying this shit out. Oh my God, it was a disaster. But it's actually quite simple. I mean, you get the squared thing alone, and then you take the square root. So your first step should be to add 5 to both sides. Now, this problem isn't going to come out particularly nice. Those cross out. So you get 2x minus 3 squared. I'll cross them out. Here, you have to be real careful with your signs. You get -25 plus 5, which is -20. Now, before I proceed, I want to point out that it started off as -25. So some people would say, oh, this is a square root question. Take the square root of -25, you get 5i. Yeah, again, that's kind of a trap, right? You don't take the square root until this is alone. So if you try to do it at that first step, then again, the whole thing is shut. So here you do square root both sides. The square and the square root cross each other out. You just get 2x minus 3. Don't do anything funky with the signs. This doesn't change. You just take it out. Here you get, don't forget your plus and minus. This is very important, right? There's two roots. So you get plus and minus radical 20. Now I'm going to try to all do it in one step, and I'm going to do it quickly. I need to get the x alone. So my first step is to do plus 3. Remember where I told you to put it. It always goes to the left of the plus and minus, right? In front of that, to the left of that. You don't put it over here. Now, at the same time I'm doing that, I'm going to break this down. I'm going to take the negative out as I, and 20 breaks down with 4 and 5, right? 4 times 5 is 20. The negative comes out as I. This is going to come out of jail as 2. It's almost done. I mean, you get kind of a nasty answer here. So free the 4 from jail, hook it up with the I. That's out of the jail. So you get that. Now just divide both sides by 2. And it's over. And yes, there is a baby trap there. You see those 2s and you might want to just go, aha, and cross them out. you can't do that unless if this was a 4 and a 2, yeah. If this was 6 and 2, yeah, you can divide them both by 2, but 3 is not divisible by 2, so don't try to get cute with this, all right? It's not a hard question, either one of them are. This question is a gift and a joke. You should not miss this at all. This one's a little bit more complicated, and you don't get the nicest answer in the world, but who cares? It's still not that difficult, and it's still better than a 3 by 3. All right, so this is the first half of your final. I'm gonna shoot a second video with 6 through 10